Welcome to the HOA battle. Witness the thrilling story of the Cross siblings as they fight to reclaim their family cabin and lake from a ruthless HOA and cunning rivals. Full of suspense, drama, and clever strategies, this tale shows courage, unity, and the power of truth against intimidation. The afternoon sun shimmered across the calm surface of Lake Echo, its gentle ripples catching light like scattered diamonds. The familiar scent of pine dipped in water drifted through the warm breeze as Aiden Cross stepped out of his dusty SUV. He stood for a moment, breathing an air he grew up around. The same air his grandfather once claimed could heal broken souls better than doctors. Aiden always laughed at that, but standing here now, he felt something loosen inside him. The old wooden cabin, perched peacefully near the lake, still looked like it belonged in a childhood memory, until he noticed something strange on the front door that a large white paper flapped under a metal staple, waving like a warning flag. Aiden walked closer, tearing it off with one firm tug. Silver Pine Lakeside Community Management Notice was printed in bold at the top. The words made him frown. There had never been any community management here, just trees, water, and peace. Aiden read through the paper, irritation rising with every line. It claimed the cabin and lakeside area were now under HOA jurisdiction, and noncompliance could lead to removal. He snorted, folding the paper twice and letting it drop from his fingers. HOA at a remote private lake? What next? Dues for bird chirping. He didn't have time to question further because a sleek black SUV rolled silently down the gravel road. The door opened, and Helena Voss stepped out, the kind of woman who looked like she ironed her smile every morning. Expensive clothes, perfect hair, posture like a general inspecting troops. Her presence sucked the warmth out of the sunlight. Aiden Cross, she greeted calmly, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. Aiden didn't bother to hide the annoyance on his face. Helena explained, with rehearsed sweetness, that the cabin no longer legally belonged to him and that the area was being restructured under HOA rules. Her tall, silent bodyguard Victor Crane shadowed her like a walking wall, arms crossed, jaw locked. Aiden responded with dry humor and disbelief, but Helena kept repeating that he needed to leave peacefully. Aiden was still arguing when the distant wail of police sirens shattered the quiet lake air. Two squad cars rolled in, sunlight bouncing off their clean exteriors. Officer Reed Dalton emerged first, stern, upright, the kind of officer who had never lost an argument with a mirror. Officer Mia Calder followed behind him, younger but sharp-eyed, immediately noticing the family initials carved above the cottage door. Reed questioned the situation, Helena acted innocent, Aiden defended himself, and Mia quietly examined the papers Helena provided. Aiden's best friend, Riley Stone, arrived next, skidding in on a rattling motorcycle like comedic relief sent by destiny. His endless commentary, nervous jokes, and exaggerated reactions irritated Reed, but amused Mia, who struggled to keep a straight face. The standoff felt absurd under the bright afternoon sun, almost like the lake itself was laughing at the chaos. Reed insisted on neutrality, unable to force either side until things were legally clearer. But Helena pushed hard, claiming Aiden had no right to stay. Mia, sensing something wrong with Helena's documents, subtly warned Aiden to gather his proof and return tomorrow. Though angry, Aiden understood. Riley fumed on his behalf, while Aiden touched the old wooden door one last time, whispering a quiet promise to return. As he and Riley climbed into the SUV, Helena taunted him to bring something real next time. Aiden looked at her with a calm, dangerous certainty. He promised to return with truth, and this time, Helena's confident face cracked for just a moment. His SUV drove away, trailing dust down the lakeside road. The police followed. Helena and Victor remained on the porch, standing like self-appointed rulers over land that wasn't theirs. But Aiden's determination swirled through the warm air like a storm building. Lake Echo remained calm, but beneath its surface, something had shifted, something that would rise soon enough. The next morning rose bright and unbothered, as if the lake had forgotten the chaos of yesterday. Aiden Cross, however, hadn't. He barely slept, spending half the night digging through dusty boxes in his apartment. Old deeds, letters from his grandfather, maps of Lake Echo from the 1950s, anything that could crush Helena Voss's fake HOA empire. Riley snored on his couch the entire time, useless but loyal, occasionally waking up to shout, "Bro, we are not letting the broccoli-haired villain win." Before falling asleep again, by noon, Aiden had gathered a thick stack of documents. He drove toward the lake with determination twisting inside him like a tightened spring. Riley sat beside him, eating chips loudly, dropping crumbs everywhere. "We're going to legally destroy her," Riley declared, mouth full. Aiden shook his head, but couldn't help smiling. His best friend was a mess, but an entertaining one. As they approached the lake, Aiden slowed the SUV. What he saw made his blood boil. The once peaceful lakeside now looked like a construction zone. A bright blue temporary HOA banner hung crookedly between two pine trees. A white pop-up table sat near the cabin porch where Helena Voss stood like a queen, wearing sunglasses and holding a clipboard as if she were conducting a glamorous war point. 3 new HOA volunteers were there too, clipboards, polo shirts, and all the arrogance in the world. Victor Crane loomed behind them, arms crossed, scanning the area like he expected a raid. And because chaos apparently loved this lake now, 2 police cars were already parked near the water. Officer Reed Dalton and Officer Mia Calder were speaking to the volunteers, looking tired enough to regret their career choices. Aiden parked and stepped out. Riley leaped from the SUV like a warrior entering battle. "Behold, the rightful owners have returned," he declared dramatically. A nearby volunteer almost dropped his clipboard. Helena turned slowly, a smug smile stretching across her face. "Aiden," she said sweetly, "I see you've brought support." Riley pointed at her dramatically. "I will have you know, ma'am, I come with high emotional value." Aiden nudged him to stop. Helena walked toward them, heels clicking on the wooden porch. "You're here early. I expected you to need more time to gather what you pretend to be evidence." Aiden pulled out the thick folder of documents. "Oh, don't worry. I brought the original deed from 1956, tax records, boundary maps, and even photographs of my grandfather building this place with his bare hands. The only thing I didn't bring was patience." Helena's sunglasses hit her eyes, but her lips tightened. Officer Reed stepped between them. "Okay, both of you, let's calm down." His tone sounded like he'd said the same sentence about 50 times this morning. Mia approached Aiden with a soft smile. "Relieved you returned with proof. You brought a lot," she said, flipping through the first few pages. "These look real. Very real." Helena stepped in quickly. "Officer Calder does not have authority to review these documents." Reed raised a brow. "She absolutely does. She's assigned to this case." Helena opened her mouth to argue again, but at that moment, a loud and obnoxious car horn echoed across the lake road. Everyone turned out. A red Jeep bounced into view. Lily Cross, Aiden's younger sister, stepped out, wearing combat boots, sunglasses, and the kind of attitude that said she was ready to punch destiny in the face. "I heard someone try to steal our childhood," she announced. "Not on my watch." Aiden groaned. "Lily, I told you to stay home." "Please," Lily scoffed. "You can't even keep your houseplants alive." "You definitely need help," Riley whispered. "I like her energy." Helena looked unimpressed. "Lovely. A family reunion. Now, if you're all done with dramatics, we need to review these so-called documents legally." Without warning, she snatched the folder from Aiden's hand. Aiden grabbed it right back. The two froze for a moment, their hands gripping opposite ends of the folder as tension surged like electricity. Reed stepped in again. "Both of you, stop tugging like you're fighting over a toy. Let me review the documents." Aiden handed the papers to Reed, trusting him more than Helena. Reed walked toward the police car to examine everything in peace. Mia followed him. Aiden turned back to Helena. "You look nervous," he said casually. "Didn't expect real evidence, did you?" Helena's lips curved into a cold smile. "Evidence is irrelevant when the system already sides with order. HOAs bring order." Riley coughed loudly. "Mom, Jalhua bading me guy." Before Helena could retort, one of her volunteers hurried over. "Ms. Voss, the boundary markers aren't matching your map. The north side doesn't align with our layout." Helena shot him a glare so deadly, the poor volunteer swallowed his words and shrank backward. Victor cracked his knuckles, making the volunteer flinch even more. Aiden crossed his arms. "Your whole claim is built on lies. Even your volunteers look like they're about to run away." Riley added proudly, "Yeah, even the trees are judging you." Suddenly, Reed called out from the police car. His voice was low, but stern enough to make everyone turn. "Helena, these deeds are legitimate. The cabin legally belongs to the Cross family." Helena froze. The volunteers went silent. Victor didn't move, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. Aiden felt relief wash over him, but Reed wasn't done. However, Reed continued, raising another paper. "There's a petition filed by Silvapine HOA last month that claims environmental safety violations on the property." Helena's confidence returned like a snake lifting its head. She smiled. "Yes. Thank you, Officer Dalton. I'm glad you found that. This property cannot be occupied until the safety inspection is cleared." Aiden stared at her. "You filed a fake complaint so you could stall ownership." Helena stepped closer, voice low and venomous. "Stalling is an art, Mr. Cross. I excel at art." Aiden clenched his fists. Lily stood beside him like a guard dog, ready to leap. Riley's jaw dropped. Mia looked apologetically at Aiden. "This means you still can't enter the cabin today. Not until inspectors check the structure." Helena let out a satisfied sigh. "So, Mr. Cross, you'll have to leave again." Aiden took a step forward, eyes burning. "This isn't over." Helena smiled like a queen who just won a war. I hope not. I enjoy long battles. Aiden turned back toward his SUV, but deep inside, the fire had only just begun to burn. Lake Echo shimmered behind him, quiet, calm, unfazed. But Aiden knew the storm ahead would make yesterday look like a soft breeze. This wasn't just about a cabin anymore. That IT was war. The drive back from Lake Echo felt heavier than yesterday. Aiden's SUV crawled down the forest road, as if the trees themselves were whispering warnings through their rustling leaves. Riley tapped the dashboard rhythmically, humming an off-key tune that didn't match Aiden's mood at all. Lily sat in the back seat, arms crossed, staring out the window with the kind of anger only siblings understood. Every few minutes, she muttered something like, "She really thinks she can steal our land?" Or, "I swear, I will karate kick her clipboard." Aiden didn't respond. He was too busy replaying Helena Voss's smug smile in his mind, the way she turned the situation even when the truth was against her. He had brought real documents, undeniable evidence, yet the HOA president still twisted the system to delay him. And now, an environmental safety complaint barred him from stepping inside the cabin. A cabin his grandfather built. A cabin that held every memory he grew up with. As they reached the main road, Riley finally broke the silence. "Okay, so, obviously we need a new plan. Preferably one that involves me doing something heroic." Lily scoffed. "The only heroic thing you've ever done is eat 4 cheeseburgers in one sitting." "That was heroic," Riley insisted. Aiden sighed. "What we need is someone who knows the lake better than Helena's fake documents." His mind drifted to the elderly woman who lived near the eastern side of the lake, Nora Hale. She was the unofficial historian of Silver Pine, a walking encyclopedia of land records and lake myths. If anyone knew the real boundaries of Lake Echo, it was her. "I'm going to Nora's cabin," Aiden decided. "She might have old maps or proof the HOA can't twist." Lily nodded. "Good. Someone has to counter Helena's evilness." Riley raised his hand. "I vote we also buy snacks for battle morale." "Riley," Aiden said, "this is not a picnic." "It could be," Riley whispered under his breath. By late afternoon, they reached Nora Hale's small cottage nestled between berry bushes and tall oaks. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, and wind chimes made soft metallic music near the front door. Aiden knocked gently. After a moment, the door creaked open to reveal Nora, thin, short, silver-haired, and sharp-eyed like she saw through people more than at them. "Aiden Cross," she said with a knowing smile. "I was expecting you." Aiden blinked. "You were?" "Oh, dear boy, news travels faster than fish gossip in this town." "Cool mean." Inside, Nora's home felt like a museum of the past. Old maps framed on walls, shelves filled with books and dusty boxes. The smell of herbal tea floated through the air. They sat at a small wooden table while Lily and Riley admired a collection of antique postcards. Nora poured tea into ceramic cups. "So, Helena Voss is trying to claim your cabin." "Trying?" Riley echoed. "She already practically moved in." Aiden explained everything: the fake notices, the police involvement, the environmental complaint Helena manufactured to stall them. Nora listened silently, her expression tightening with each detail. "That woman," Nora muttered, shaking her head. "She has been planning something big for years. Bigger than a cabin, bigger than a lake." Aiden leaned forward. "What do you know?" Nora stood and shuffled to a tall drawer cabinet. She pulled out a rolled-up map, so old its edges curled like dried leaves. She placed it on the table and flattened it carefully with paperweights. "This," she said, "is the original land division map from 1954, before the town expanded, before any HOA existed. Look here." Her wrinkled finger traced the lake shoreline, pointing at a marked area labeled Cross Property, Private Estate. Aiden stared. "This proves Helena has no claim." "Yes," Nora said, "but she doesn't care about legality. She cares about land power. The HOA wants this territory to construct a luxury retreat, something they can profit from. Your cabin is the last piece blocking their expansion." Lily's eyes widened. "She wants to turn the lake into a business?" "Exactly." Riley gasped dramatically. "She wants to commercialize nature? What is she, a supervillain?" Aiden clenched his jaw. "This map, can it hold up legally?" "Absolutely," Nora said. "But I must warn you, once Helena realizes you have this, she won't back down. She might become desperate." Aiden felt a chill despite the warm cottage. "Let her try." No sooner had he said it than a sudden knock echoed sharply through the house. Nora stiffened. Aiden exchanged glances with Lily and Riley. "Who is that?" Lily whispered. Nora motioned for them to stay quiet. She walked to the door, opening it only a crack, and there stood Officer Mia Calder, looking concerned. "Aiden," she said softly, "you need to come outside." Aiden stepped onto the porch, and his heart sank. 3 more police cars were parked in Nora's yard, and Helena Voss stood beside Victor, holding a bright red folder like a trophy. Mia looked apologetic. Reed stood behind Helena, clearly annoyed but forced to be there. Aiden's pulse raced. What now? He demanded. Helena smiled sweetly. Aiden Cross, you're interfering with an ongoing HOA environmental investigation. And now I have received a complaint that you're gathering unverified witnesses to fabricate land rights. Riley gasped. Unverified witnesses. She just called Nora a side character. Nora huffed loudly. I'm not a side character. Helena raised a red folder triumphantly. I'm afraid you all must accompany the officers to the station for formal questioning. Interfering with HOA investigations is a punishable offense. Aiden's fist clenched. You're abusing the system. And you, Helena replied coldly, are trying to break it. The officers shifted uncomfortably, clearly unhappy with Helena's manipulation, but still bound to follow procedure. Mia stepped closer to Aiden, whispering urgently, Don't panic. Just cooperate. We'll figure something out. Aiden looked at her, then back at Helena, the woman smiling like she'd already won the war. This is not over, Aiden said, voice steady but burning. Helena tilted her head. Oh, I know. That's what makes it fun. As the officers led Aiden, Lily, and Riley toward the patrol cars, the map lay safely tucked in Aiden's jacket. And though he was being pulled away from Nora's cottage, something new simmered in his chest. Hope. Because now he had proof, and Helena knew it. The police station felt colder than it should have. Not physically, just emotionally. Aiden, Lily, and Riley sat side by side in a bland interrogation room that smelled faintly of old paper and burnt coffee. A metal table separated them from the world outside, and the ticking wall clock seemed louder than everything else. Riley drummed his fingers nervously while Lily whispered curses about Helena under her breath. Aiden sat quietly, the old map from Nora Hale folded inside his jacket like a hidden lifeline. Officer Mia Calder entered the room first, followed by Officer Reed Dalton. Mia looked genuinely sorry. Reed looked exhausted. Probably because dealing with Helena Voss was the kind of stress doctors warn about. Reed spoke first. Let me be clear. This isn't an arrest. It's questioning. Formality. His tone made it obvious he didn't agree with the situation. But since Helena filed the complaint through official HOA channels, we need to record statements. Lily scoffed. Oh, great. The evil queen of paperwork has magic powers now. Mia sat across from them. Look, none of us want this. But if we don't follow procedure, Helena will accuse us of bias. And she has political connections. Her voice dropped. Dangerous ones. Aiden leaned forward. Did you talk to Reed about the map? Mia shook her head slightly. Not yet. I didn't want Helena overhearing anything. She lowered her voice even more. Keep it hidden for now. Reed spent the next half hour asking standard questions. Not accusations, just formalities, where they were, what they did, why they were at Nora Hale's home. Aiden answered calmly, Lily answered aggressively, and Riley answered dramatically, claiming he was fighting for justice, snacks, and nature. Reed just scribbled, witness is energetic. Once the statements were done, Reed sighed deeply. You all are free to go, but tread carefully. Helena is pushing boundaries that even I can't control. As they stepped outside, the sun was already tilting westward, casting long shadows across the parking lot. The world felt oddly quiet, the calm before something bigger. Aiden unlocked the SUV when Mia hurried after him. Aiden, she whispered urgently, listen to me. Helena didn't file an environmental complaint because she believes it. She filed it because she wants time. For what? Aiden asked. I don't know, Mia said, her brows knit with worry. But she was speaking with a man earlier, someone who wasn't Victor Crane, someone I've never seen around here. And Helena looked scared of him. Aiden frowned. What did he look like? A briefcase type, clean-shaven, calm, the kind of person who doesn't blink unless it's written into his schedule. Mia hesitated. Please be careful. She's playing a bigger game. Lily tapped Aiden's shoulder impatiently. Let's go. We have work to do. Back inside the SUV, Aiden pulled out the map Nora had given him. The paper felt ancient and delicate, yet powerful. Riley leaned forward between the front seats, squinting at it. This thing looks older than my student loan debt, Riley whispered. Aiden traced the inked lines, the original shoreline, the areas marked as private property, the cabins that once dotted the east and western edges. The place Nora had called Cross Estate was clearly outlined. It wasn't just a cabin. It was a historical landmark. We need more evidence, Aiden said. Nora helped, but Helena won't back down. We need to find something stronger, something that makes her fall apart. Riley brightened. Like a scandal? Secret lover? Tax fraud. Like a legal loophole, Aiden corrected. But secret lover sounds more fun, Riley mumbled. Lily snapped her fingers. The cottage by the hill. Aiden blinked. What? The small cottage near the north side of the lake. The one Grandpa used as a storage shack. Remember? He always said it held documents he never wanted to lose. Aiden stopped breathing for a moment. He remembered a tiny wooden cottage, half hidden behind trees, barely held together by time. He hadn't been inside it since childhood. He always assumed it was empty or full of broken tools. But their grandfather did mention, more than once, that important family documents were stored there. If the original deeds are anywhere, Lily said, they're in that cottage. Aiden turned the key in the ignition. We're going. The drive back to Lake Echo felt heavier than ever. The sun was dipping low, but there was still enough daylight to search. When they arrived, the lake shimmered with a sunset sheen, and the air carried a faint chill. Aiden parked deeper into the forest, away from the HOA volunteers and their prying eyes. They made their way through the trees until the small hill cottage came into view. The structure leaned slightly to the left, vines crawling up its cracked wooden walls. The door hung crooked on rusty hinges, but still intact. Aiden pushed it gently. The door creaked open. Inside, dust floated in beams of golden light. Old wooden shelves lined the walls, filled with jars, boxes, and folded tarps. Cobwebs draped the corners like forgotten curtains. Riley coughed dramatically. This place smells like expired history. Lily elbowed him. Shoo, look for any boxes with Grandpa's handwriting. Aiden moved deeper inside, heart pounding. He ran his fingers across a shelf until he noticed a wooden crate tucked behind an old fishing net. The lid had their grandfather's initials burned into it. H.C. Harold crossed. Aiden's breath caught in his throat. This is it, he whispered. He opened the crate slowly. Inside lay bundles of papers tied with twine, an old journal wrapped in leather, a small metal box, and his heart skipped, a sealed envelope marked property rights, to be used if ever needed. Lily gasped. Riley almost fainted. Aiden held the envelope carefully, as if he were holding the past itself. This, he whispered, voice trembling, might be exactly what we need. He slipped the envelope inside his jacket. But as they stepped outside the old cottage, the wind shifted. Leaves rustled violently. Birds scattered from branches. Aiden froze. Down the hill, near the lakeside clearing, stood Helena Voss. And she wasn't alone. Victor Crane flanked her, cold, silent, watchful. And next to him stood another man tall, clean-shaven, carrying a briefcase, the same man Mia warned about. Helena smiled up the hill, her voice drifting through the trees like poison. Found anything interesting, Mr. Cross? Aiden tightened his grip on the document hidden inside his jacket. The war for the lake had just entered its most dangerous chapter yet. The air around the hill turned unnaturally still, as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Aiden, Lily, and Riley stood frozen outside the old cottage, the envelope hidden carefully beneath Aiden's jacket, while three figures watched them from below with the unsettling calm of predators who knew their prey had nowhere to go. Helena Voss stood front and center, her polished smile stretched wider than usual, like she was trying too hard to look in control. Beside her, Victor Crane remained a statue carved from shadow and muscle. But it was the third man, the stranger with the briefcase, who stole the atmosphere and bent it to his will that he walked forward with slow, measured steps, the gravel crunching beneath his polished shoes in a rhythm that sounded disturbingly deliberate. Aiden felt an instinctive chill crawl up his spine. This man didn't belong to Helena. He belonged to something much bigger and much darker. When he reached a comfortable distance from them, he looked up the hill with calm, calculating eyes. Mr. Cross, he said smoothly, his voice soft yet carrying easily across the distance. A pleasure. I've heard quite a lot about you today. Aiden didn't reply. He studied the man instead. Tall, early 40s, crisp black suit, not a wrinkle out of place. Clean-shaven with a face so controlled it almost looked emotionless. He carried the briefcase, not like an accessory, but like a weapon. Helena broke the silence first. You were told this property was under HOA jurisdiction. So I must ask again, why exactly are you trespassing? Lily stepped forward angrily. This is our land, our cabin, our lake. You're the ones trespassing. Victor's shoulders tensed slightly, but the briefcase man raised a hand, and the entire atmosphere froze again. Even Helena fell silent, that he addressed Aiden directly. My name is Silas Warden, legal consultant, among other things. Riley whispered to Aiden, yeah, other things like kidnapping and tax evasion, probably. Lily elbowed him hard. Silas continued as if he heard nothing. I represent certain investors who have taken an interest in this lake. And your sudden rediscovery of old property rights is complicating matters. Aiden stiffened. We didn't rediscover anything. We've always owned this place. Silas smiled without warmth. Ownership is a flexible concept, one that can shift depending on interpretation, paperwork, and timing. Riley muttered. He talks like a villain who charges by the minute. Silas's eyes flicked toward him, unblinking, until Riley quieted instantly. Helena stepped beside Silas with inflated confidence. Mr. Warden is assisting us in making sure everything is legal. So unless you wish to escalate this, you'll hand over any documents you found inside that cottage. Aiden's heartbeat quickened. She knew. Somehow, she knew they found something. Maybe she saw them from a distance. Maybe she was guessing. Maybe she simply assumed. Aiden looked at Lily. Lily looked at Riley. And Riley mouthed silently. Don't give them anything. Silas clasped his hands behind his back. Mr. Cross, you should know this. The people I represent do not like delays. They do not like obstacles. And they certainly do not like missing paperwork. Aiden stepped forward, voice calm but firm. Then they're in the wrong place. Because I'm not giving you anything. Silas didn't react. Not a twitch. Not a blink. Helena, however, snapped, Victor, don't. Silas raised a single finger, and Victor immediately froze mid-step. We will handle this diplomatically for now. He gave Aiden a slow, measured nod. You have something that belongs to us. I suggest you reconsider before this becomes unfortunate. Aiden didn't move, didn't blink, didn't back down. Silas studied him one last time, then turned and began walking away. Victor followed like a shadow. Helena stood there longer, glaring venomously at Aiden before finally snapping her fingers and storming off behind them. Once the three of them disappeared into the trees, Riley exhaled loudly. Okay, so that guy? That guy definitely murders people just by looking at them too long. Lily didn't laugh. What does he want with the lake? Investors? Why? Aiden pulled the envelope from inside his jacket. We're going to find out. Tonight. Riley blinked. Tonight? As in pitch black, creepy lake, horror movie time. No, Aiden said firmly. Before sunset. Before they regroup. Before they call whatever powerful people they work for. He opened the envelope carefully. Inside were several faded documents, including a deed, signatures, a hand-drawn land survey, and a sealed smaller note with his grandfather's handwriting. Lily and Riley leaned in. What's that? Lily whispered. Aiden opened the note. Inside, written in trembling ink, were 6 words. If they return, trust no one. Riley swallowed hard. I've always started panicking. Aiden gripped the letter tighter. No panique. Just answers. We're going back to the cabin. Now. They hurried through the forest, adrenaline sharpening their movements. But as they reached the lakeside path, Aiden stopped short. His cabin, his family cabin, was surrounded .3 HOA volunteers with clipboards. 2 police cars. And standing proudly at the center, like a queen on her throne, was Helena Voss. Silas wasn't there. Victor wasn't there. But their influence lingered like a storm cloud. Mia stood nearby, looking furious, clearly forced to comply with orders she didn't believe in. Reed was arguing quietly with Helena. Aiden clenched his jaw. It begins, Lily muttered. No. Aiden corrected. It continues. The war for the lake had officially crossed the line. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the gravel and pine needles as Aiden, Lily, and Riley crouched behind the thick trunks of the trees lining the path to their cabin. The HOA volunteers and police cars had formed a perimeter around the property, and Helena Voss stood at the center, arms crossed, her posture screaming authority. Victor Crane lingered just beyond, silent as always, a wall of muscle ready to enforce her will. Aiden's hands clenched around the envelope from the Hill Cottage, the old deeds and handwritten notes burning in his jacket like a secret weapon. We can't just sneak in, Lily whispered, eyes narrowed. They'll see us immediately. Aiden shook his head, scanning the setup. We don't need to sneak in. We need to be clever. They think they control this lake. Let's show them they don't. Riley leaned against a tree and groaned. Clever like distracting them with rocks? Or yelling things at them? Not that kind of clever, Aiden said, rolling his eyes. We're going to use their arrogance against them. Helena thinks everything we have is irrelevant. That's her weakness. He pulled out the map from Nora's cottage, spreading it across a flat rock. He traced the original boundaries, marking access points where the volunteers weren't paying attention. Here, he whispered, pointing, we can get close to the cabin without being immediately spotted. And here, he indicated the northern slope. We can sneak the documents inside if necessary. Riley tapped the map with his finger. Operation Sneak and Throw Paper at Villain. Got it. I like it. Lily elbowed him. Focus, idiot. Aiden glanced at her, appreciating the fire in her eyes. Tonight, we don't fight with fists. We fight with brains and truth. They moved carefully along the planned path. The trees provided cover. The lake glimmered in the late sun, and every snap of a twig made Riley flinch dramatically. When they reached the northern slope, Aiden peered around the last tree. The cabin looked exactly as he remembered. Timeless, defiant, and peaceful despite the chaos Helena had brought. Victor's shadow loomed over the path to the porch. Helena's voice carried across the lakefront. Make sure nothing is taken. These people will be watched at all times. Aiden's mind raced. He could see a small gap between the volunteers' patrols. Riley, distract the volunteers, he whispered. Lily, cover me. I'm going in for the documents. Riley looked panicked. Distract them? Me? Doifro rocks. Or just scream like a banshee. Do whatever you have to, Aiden muttered. Just buy me time. As Riley ran out into the clearing yelling, waving his arms, the volunteers spun in confusion, shouting at him. Lily kept her eyes on Victor, using a combination of hand gestures and strategic movements to block his line of sight. Aiden sprinted for the cabin, sliding the old wooden door open with ease. The familiar smell of aged wood and pine hit him, and he swallowed the lump in his throat. This was his home, and he wasn't going to let it go quietly. Inside, he grabbed boxes from the corner where the envelope's companions were stored. Stacks of deeds, property maps, and historical documents filled the small cottage, and he carefully tucked them into a backpack. Each page he handled was like holding a piece of his family's legacy, proof that Helena and the HOA had no authority here. Outside, Riley's yelling had drawn the attention of most of the volunteers, and even Helena's gaze was momentarily fixed on the chaos. Victor, sensing a disturbance, moved toward the cabin. But Lily anticipated him, throwing a stick that bounced off a tree, creating just enough confusion for Aiden to slip out the back door with the backpack secured. The trio sprinted down the northern slope toward the cover of the forest. Leaves and twigs whipped against their legs, but adrenaline drowned out every ache. Helena's sharp voice cut through the air. "Stop them. That property is off limits." Aiden didn't look back. He could hear footsteps pounding behind them, Victor's massive presence slicing through the underbrush, but the gap was widening. They reached the edge of the trees and paused to catch their breath, safe for the moment. Riley panted. Holy smokes. That was like a real-life spy movie." Lily shot him a glare. "You almost blew it at least 3 times. Aiden ignored them both. He opened the backpack and examined the documents, the deeds and letters spilling over in a cascade of proof. "We have everything we need," he said, determination etched on his face. "Helena's army might have numbers, but we have law, history, and truth." Riley grinned. "And me. Don't forget me." Lily rolled her eyes but smiled faintly. "And me." Aiden's gaze drifted to the lake, glimmering like a promise in the fading sunlight. "Tomorrow, we strike back. Not with fists, not with yelling, but with undeniable proof." Helena Voss won't know what hit her. For a moment, the three of them simply stood there, catching their breath, watching the sun sink behind the trees. The lake seemed calm, almost innocent, but the storm that had begun was far from over. They were ready now, prepared, armed not with weapons, but with the power of truth, cleverness, and courage. And the next day, the real battle would begin. Dawn broke over Lake Echo, the water shimmering like liquid gold under the early sun. Aiden, Lily, and Riley returned cautiously, moving through the familiar forest paths with backpacks stuffed full of the original deeds, maps, and grandfather-sealed note. The cabin sat in quiet defiance, its wooden beams glinting softly in the morning light, seemingly untouched despite Helena Voss's continued occupation. The air was crisp and fragrant with pine, carrying the promise of confrontation. Helena and Victor were already outside, joined by 2 additional volunteers. Helena's posture radiated power, her clipboard clutched like a weapon, while Victor's dark frame stood just beyond, a silent threat. Aiden inhaled sharply. He knew he had to act quickly. Hesitation could let Helena regroup and nullify everything they'd worked for. He whispered to Lily and Riley, "Stick to the plan. Distraction first, then proof." Riley grinned. "Distraction? Yes. I've been training for this my whole life." He sprinted forward, waving his arms and shouting incoherently about lake monsters and HOA tyranny, sending the volunteers into chaos. Helena's eyes narrowed, and she barked orders, but Riley's ridiculous antics made it impossible for them to focus. Victor moved to intercept him, but Lily stepped out, using a sharp whistle to draw Victor's attention in another direction. "Catch me if you can," she called mockingly, darting behind a tree. Aiden seized the moment, slipping inside the cabin to retrieve the small safe hidden under the floorboards. Inside lay even more original deeds, tax records, and letters proving the Cross family's ownership since before the HOA existed. Each piece of paper was a weapon, each signature a hammer striking Helena's false claims. He stuffed them carefully into a waterproof case, aware that any misstep could result in them being taken away again. Outside, Helena's frustration boiled over. "Victor, stop them," she shouted, her voice carrying across the lakefront. Victor's eyes scanned the trees and finally caught sight of Aiden slipping back toward the shore. He moved with terrifying speed, but Lily and Riley created diversions at every turn, shouting, throwing sticks, and even tossing a small fishing net, forcing him to slow his advance. Helena, realizing her direct control was slipping, stomped toward the cabin herself, her heels clicking sharply against the wooden deck. Aiden reached the water's edge, the lake glinting beside him, and quickly assessed the terrain. He spotted a small and used boathouse a short distance away. It would provide cover and a vantage point from which to reveal their proof. This way, he whispered, leading Lily and Riley carefully toward it. Every rustle of leaves felt deafening, every bird call a warning. Behind them, Helena's shouts grew louder. They reached the boathouse and quickly laid out the documents, the legal proof of ownership and grandfather's note. Aiden held the note aloft. This, he called, projecting his voice across the water, is the truth. Every word, every signature, every piece of history belongs to the Cross family. This lake, this cabin, this property, ours legally and historically. Helena froze, momentarily stunned. She glanced at Victor, who stopped, calculating. The volunteers around her were equally frozen, unsure what to do as Aiden spread the documents across a small wooden table inside the boathouse, letting the sunlight illuminate them. The proof was undeniable. Anyone could see it, anyone with eyes to see the facts. Even the police present, Reed and Mia, who had been watching from a distance, started moving closer, their expressions tight with realization that Helena's composure cracked for the first time. Her clipped smile faltered, replaced by a flash of pure frustration. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice tight as a wire. "You may have documents, but the HOA has power. This lake, this property, you're still in violation until formal review." Aiden met her gaze, unwavering. "We're not afraid of paperwork or threats. You can try to take the lake, but truth and law are stronger than intimidation." Riley, unable to hold back, waved the deeds like a banner. "Yeah, fear the mighty paper army." Lily rolled her eyes but smirked nonetheless, realizing Riley's ridiculous humor had lightened the tension, giving them all a psychological edge. Helena looked around, suddenly aware that her volunteers were shifting uneasily, some whispering to each other, seeing the truth firsthand. Victor's massive frame blocked her from moving closer, his loyalty tested against the evident reality. Reed and Mia stepped forward, now fully in support of the Cross family, observing the undeniable proof laid out before them. For the first time, Helena faltered visibly. Her confident authority trembled under the weight of evidence and witness acknowledgement. She clenched her fists, glanced at Victor and the volunteers, and for a fleeting second, Aiden thought she might scream or flee. Instead, she straightened her posture, raised her clipboard like a shield, and said, "This is far from over. We will review these documents. But don't think victory is guaranteed." Aiden smiled faintly, knowing the tide had shifted. "It's already over for deception." The lake itself seemed to shimmer approvingly, reflecting the rising sun's rays across the documents. It was as if the waters, which had witnessed generations of his family, were now acknowledging their rightful guardians. Riley danced in place, celebrating their small but crucial victory, while Lily shook her head at his antics, smiling despite herself. As Helena and Victor retreated to regroup, the Cross siblings and Riley stood together on the boathouse dock, overlooking the shimmering lake. It was a moment of triumph, fleeting but significant, a declaration that they were not just fighting for property, but for justice, family legacy, and the unbreakable bond between them. The real battle might still lie ahead, but for now, Lake Echo belonged, in spirit and law, to those who had always called it home. Even as the sun climbed higher over Lake Echo, Aiden, Lily, and Riley worked tirelessly to secure the documents. They had survived Helena Voss's first wave, but the air still felt heavy with tension. The lake's calm surface mocked the storm brewing just beyond the tree line. Helena had retreated for now, but Aiden knew better than to assume she was done. This woman thrived on control, on manipulation, on striking when her enemies least expected it. By late morning, Riley had crafted an elaborate plan involving decoy trails and harmless traps to slow down any approaching volunteers, while Lily scouted vantage points around the cabin. Aiden focused on organizing the documents into neat bundles, preparing for the moment when law and evidence would finally outweigh Helena's intimidation. The forest whispered around them, the wind rustling leaves like a warning. Suddenly, the faint hum of an engine broke the morning stillness. Aiden squinted toward the gravel road and froze. 3 black SUVs rolled down the path toward the cabin, dust trailing behind them. Helena Voss sat in the lead vehicle, her expression sharper than ever, clutching her signature red folder. Beside her, Victor Crane remained stoic, while the third man, the one Mia had warned them about, Silas Warden, exited the rear seat with a purposeful stride. The briefcase gleamed in the sunlight as he approached the cabin with a precision that made Aiden's stomach tighten. Helena's voice rang out, crisp and commanding. "Cross family, step away from the property. You have until sundown to comply with HOA regulations or face legal action, and consequences far beyond your understanding." Riley whispered in awe. "Far beyond, like secret agents? Navy SEALs? Or just really scary paperwork?" Lily glared at him. "Riley, shut up and pay attention." Aiden stepped forward, clutching the envelope that held the final piece of their grandfather's proof. We're not stepping away. This cabin, this land, and this lake belong to our family. You can threaten all you want, Helena, but law and truth are on our side. Helena arched an eyebrow, her composure returning with a chilling elegance. Bravery or stupidity? Time will tell. She snapped her fingers, and Victor advanced with the volunteers, moving like a wave, closing in on the Cross family's position. The forest no longer offered much cover. Aiden's pulse quickened, but his mind stayed sharp. Silas Warden stepped closer, his polished shoes crunching on the gravel. "Mr. Cross," he said, calm and measured, "you are playing with forces you do not understand. Consider this a courtesy warning. Compliance will spare you unnecessary complications." Aiden's jaw tightened. "We understand perfectly. You've overstepped, and now the truth is catching up to you." Silas's piercing eyes studied him for a long moment. Then he lifted the briefcase, snapping it open to reveal rows of folders. Legal documents, contracts, and official papers that seemed designed to intimidate even the most confident. "If your family papers are genuine, we will review them. But consider the consequences of delaying HOA-approved projects. Time is not on your side," Riley whispered. "Time is never on anyone's side, apparently. Except maybe Helena." Lily elbowed him. "Focus. Now." Aiden raised his hand, signaling calm. He stepped forward, holding the envelope high. "These are the original deeds and documents proving ownership of the Cross property since 1954. This lake, this cabin, and all adjoining land belong to us by law and history. Every paper you see is verified, notarized, and historical. You can't fight truth with threats." Helena's lips curled into a tight smile, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Silas's calm demeanor faltered ever so slightly as he glanced at the documents, then back to Helena. For the first time, they both realized that these weren't just papers. They were a mountain of evidence that could crumble Helena's carefully constructed web of intimidation. Aiden stepped closer. "We're not afraid. You can try to intimidate us. You can try to bring in armies or manipulate authorities, but truth is not something you can erase." Helena's hands clenched, then relaxed. She straightened, maintaining her outward composure. "You may have won the first battle, but the war is far from over. Prepare yourself, Mr. Cross. You've stirred forces you cannot control." As Helena, Victor, and Silas retreated back to their vehicles, the tension in the forest slowly lifted. Aiden, Lily, and Riley exhaled, their bodies tired but their spirits lifted. The first strike of Helena's counterattack had been met, and they had survived. Aiden turned toward the lake, the water glinting with sunlight like a promise. "This is far from over," he murmured, echoing Helena's words. "But we've shown we won't back down. Not today. Not ever." Riley clapped him on the shoulder. "Yeah, take that, scary suit guy. Take that, clipboard queen. Team Cross forever." Lily smirked, shaking her head at Riley's antics. "Don't let him get to you," she said to Aiden. "He's harmless, mostly." Aiden allowed himself a small smile. "Mostly." The Cross siblings and Riley turned back toward the cabin, ready to prepare for whatever Helena would throw at them next. One thing was certain. This battle for Lake Echo was no longer about property alone. It had become a fight for family, legacy, and the right to stand tall against tyranny. And Aiden, for the first time in days, felt the thrill of the fight pulsing through him, steady and unrelenting. The sun had dipped behind the dense pines, casting Lake Echo into a warm amber glow that soon gave way to dusky shadows. The Cross siblings and Riley sat on the cabin porch, the air thick with the scent of pine and lake water. Inside the cabin, a small lantern flickered, illuminating the historic documents they had fought so hard to retrieve. Aiden spread the papers across the table, careful not to crease the delicate edges, while Lily and Riley kept watch, eyes darting toward the faint sounds of movement along the forest perimeter. "This is it," Aiden said, his voice steady, yet tinged with urgency. "Helena won't give up until she's forced to. Tomorrow, we present these documents to the authorities. But tonight, we prepare. We anticipate her next move." Lily leaned forward, tracing lines on one of the hand-drawn maps. "We need a contingency plan. Victor will be looking for us, and Silas. Well, Silas isn't predictable. If they attempt another show of intimidation, we need to be ready." Riley, still chomping on a granola bar, looked up. "Or we just scare them first. Like lights, noise, dramatic Ghost Lake vibes. You know, psychological warfare." Lily shot him a pointed glare. "Focus, Riley. This isn't a game." Aiden nodded. "Riley's partially right, but we need subtlety. If we make ourselves obvious, Helena will find an excuse to escalate. We need to control the narrative before she does." The three siblings pored over the documents again, cross-referencing boundaries, original deeds, and grandfather's notes. The moon rose higher, spilling silver light over the lake, reflecting off the cabin windows like watchful eyes. Each reflection seemed to whisper, "This is your family's legacy. Protect it." Suddenly, a faint sound carried from the woods, a snapping twig, deliberate and measured. All three froze. Lily motioned silently toward the tree line. Someone's out there. Aiden grabbed a flashlight, the beam cutting a path through the darkened forest. Stay calm. Could be scouts. Could be volunteers. Could be Helena herself. They waited, tense, shadows stretching long and thin across the cabin walls. Another sound came, a soft rustle, then silence. Riley muttered under his breath, "I swear that man with the briefcase is hiding somewhere, watching, judging." Aiden clenched his jaw. "We assume worst case. Keep the documents secure. Hide them if necessary. Lily, Riley, you know the signal." We move fast. They quietly arranged the papers into 3 waterproof satchels, hiding one in the floorboards of the cabin, another in the boathouse, and keeping the last with Aiden. Their plan was simple: multiple safe points, redundancy, and readiness. Helena could storm the property tomorrow, but the truth would always remain safe, if they played their cards right. Hours passed with only the gentle lapping of lake water and the occasional distant call of nocturnal birds. The quiet was deceptive, a fragile veil over the storm they knew was coming. Aiden stood on the porch, gazing over the water, thinking of his grandfather and the countless hours spent at this lake. Memories flooded back, laughter echoing through the trees, fishing trips, the smell of old wood and pine. This cabin, this lake had always been theirs. And tonight, he felt the weight of responsibility settle firmly on his shoulders. Lily joined him, her arms crossed, eyes serious. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said quietly, "we stick together. No hosetaschen, no mistakes." Riley shuffled up behind them, still whispering ideas for booby traps and psychological tricks. "Maybe we should rig the boat with strings of lights, spooky shadows, you know?" Lily groaned. "Or we could just outsmart them like adults." Aiden exhaled slowly, shaking his head at Riley's antics, but secretly amused. "Tomorrow, it's about intelligence, patience, and leverage. Helena thinks she controls the game, but we've already turned the tide. All we need is to finish it." The moon reflected in the lake, serene, almost knowing. Shadows of the trees stretched across the cabin like silent guardians. And in that quiet, tense night, the Cross siblings understood one truth: Helena's counterattacks could come, but they had the advantage of history, law, and unity on their side. Dawn would bring confrontation, but tonight, they were ready to. As the trio settled in to rest for a few stolen hours of sleep, Aiden whispered under his breath, gripping the envelope tightly, "We've survived Helena's storm. Tomorrow, the Cross family claims victory, or at least ensures she never forgets who owns this lake." The lake remained calm, but beneath its reflective surface, something stirred, a promise of the final showdown yet to come. The first rays of dawn cut through the forest, painting Lake Echo in shimmering gold and soft pink. Aiden, Lily, and Riley moved silently through the trees, each step deliberate, each breath controlled. Tonight's planning had left them exhausted but focused. Today, they would finally confront Helena Voss with undeniable proof of their ownership and reclaim the peace their family had built for generations. The lake, quiet and reflective, seemed to cheer them on, its waters catching the morning light as if eager to witness justice. Helena and Victor were already positioned near the cabin, flanked by a handful of stubborn volunteers. Silas Warden stood slightly behind them, briefcase in hand, exuding the calm menace of someone who believed he could bend the world to his will. But Helena's confidence had been shaken in the days prior, and now Aiden noticed a flicker of doubt in her sharp gaze. She knew what was coming. Aiden stepped onto the porch, Lily and Riley at his sides. He held the envelope containing the last and most critical proof, the documents, letters, and grandfather's instructions that cemented their legal and historical claim to the property. "Helena Voss," Aiden called out, voice steady and commanding, "you have been warned. These documents prove, without question, that the Cross family owns this cabin, the surrounding land, and all of Lake Echo adjoining our property. Every signature, every deed, every map is genuine and verifiable." The volunteers muttered uneasily, exchanging nervous glances. Victor's posture stiffened, but he did not move. Even Silas's eyes, so sharp and calculating, betrayed the slightest hesitation. The power of truth was a force no intimidation could override. Helena lifted her clipboard, her lips curling in a tense smile. "And what exactly do you expect to happen, Mr. Cross? That some papers will magically undo the HOA's authority?" Aiden held the envelope higher, letting the morning sun illuminate the seals and signatures. "No magic required. Just law, history, and evidence. Officers Reed and Calder," he called, turning slightly, "please witness this." Mia and Reed stepped forward, their expressions tight but supportive. They had reviewed the documents, cross-checked the maps, and confirmed the authenticity. Reed spoke calmly, authoritative. "These documents are legitimate. The Cross family's ownership is confirmed. Any claims by the HOA to this property are invalid. Helena's eyes widened slightly, her composure faltering. She turned to Silas, who opened his briefcase, flipping through stacks of legal papers in search of leverage, but found none. The evidence was unassailable. A wave of panic rippled across Helena's face, quickly masked by forced composure. This changes nothing, Helena spat, her voice sharp but trembling. The HOA can still appeal. There will be complications. Aiden stepped closer, voice firm and resolute. No, Elena. You've manipulated, threatened, and tried to intimidate. But truth, law, and the family's history are stronger than fear. Lake Echo, this cabin, and this land belong to us. And no amount of tricks, threats, or volunteers can change that. Riley stepped forward, holding up a copy of the deed dramatically. Yeah, and we have paper. Lots of it. Fear the mighty paper army. He waved the deed like a flag, eliciting a reluctant smirk even from Lily. Helena's jaw tightened. Victor's shadow loomed, but he knew better than to act against the undeniable proof. Silas closed his briefcase, a rare acknowledgement of defeat flickering in his calm eyes. Helena's shoulders sagged ever so slightly. The power she wielded so confidently had evaporated under the weight of truth. Aiden exhaled, finally allowing a hint of relief. The lake shimmered behind him, calm and radiant. The dawn air carried the scent of pine, water, and victory. 4 generations, the Cross family had defended this land, and now the fight was over. Helena had been forced to retreat, her schemes unraveled by evidence, courage, and relentless determination. Lily and Riley cheered quietly, stepping onto the porch beside Aiden. We did it, Lily said softly, still scanning the forest for any lingering threats. We really did it. Aiden smiled, looking out over the water. This lake is ours, yes, but more importantly, it's safe. Family, history, and truth have won. Helena will remember this, but Lake Echo will remember us. Riley grinned, and I got to scream like a banshee and survive. Heroic victory. Lily rolled her eyes, but laughed. Only you, Riley. The sun rose fully over the lake, its golden rays dancing across the water. The Cross siblings stood on the porch, united, triumphant, and unshakable. The cabin, the lake, and their legacy were theirs once more, protected by truth, courage, and the unbreakable bonds of family. And for the first time in days, the forest and water seemed to sigh in relief. The calm of Lake Echo finally restored. Victory had arrived at last.
Subscribe the channel and press the bell icon for new updates.